Hallelujah.
All right. Hello, hello. Good morning. My name is Matt Clemens, and I'm here with Streamline, joined by Annalise Spargo, our amazing head of strategy. And we're here to speak with you today about Special District Socialites, how to combat rumors and protect your reputation. Before we get started, it would be awesome to have you introduce yourself into chat. Give us the name of your district and where you're joining us from today. And then Annalise is going to help me keep an eye on chat and the questions before we jump in. All right. I'm seeing you guys saying hello. There's also a Q&A section for those of you who have not joined us before. Oh, there's even an AI transcript taker that's joining in. Okay, interesting. Welcome, humans, robots alike. We don't discriminate here at Streamline. We welcome everybody. So we're very, very excited. All right, so how many of you would say, by a show of hands, because you can raise your hand in Zoom, so this is good, safe practice. Those of you in a show of hands, how many of you are feeling pretty good on social media, feeling pretty strong? All right, and then how many of you are like, I'm somewhat familiar with the space, but I want to learn more? Okay, kind of a different set. Okay, looks like a lot of you fall in that category. How many of you are like, I don't even want to be on Facebook. In fact, I don't even know why I'm here on this webinar. Like our district is nowhere to be found on social media, and I don't mind it. Oh, actually, there's a lot of you that fall into that category too. Okay, well, allow us to calibrate the presentation appropriately. We have some advanced material in here, but we also have material that I think will appeal to everybody. So it is our goal that by joining today, that today is useful, that you leave feeling empowered, knowing what you want to worry about, what you don't need to worry about, and that we can help this be successful. All right. So Annalise is going to help put the hands down so then I'll know if people are still wanting to ask a question or something and jumping in. You are welcome to ask questions at any time during the webinar today. Annalise and I love, all the excitement and, we love questions popping up as they occur to you. So please feel free to just jump in any time. And with that, we will get started. So the big question that we see asked often is, should we engage on social media? And I think especially for those of you in that third category of like, we don't even necessarily want, to have any kind of things. What are the general considerations before diving in? Well, the biggest thing that comes up is, what if you just don't? What's the worst thing that can happen if you're not on social media? Well, there are a couple categories of things. There are rogue board members or employees that maybe do want to communicate on social media without the board permission or without the district. And we've worked with enough districts to really see this happening. Another thing is squatters that represent your district. It's rare, but it happens. Sometimes there's haters talking about you anyway, even if you're not there. And the inability to contribute or impact the conversation kind of comes up. So we have some examples. We've got, unofficial websites. Facebook has come a long way in terms of making this more clear. But the satire accounts that are out there happen. We had another, this happened to a unnamed harbor district in California. And basically they had an official logo. It had official other things. And it was all fine and good until they started posting about surfing and things that have personal views. And it was a hassle. And people were confused. They're like, gosh, it looks official, with the seal and everything. Have any of you, just by show of hands, like had this happen where you had somebody else communicating on behalf of your district on social media? It's less common now, but it can still come up. And if you have that problem, we've got some tips for you. They'll be in the slides that we send out. You always want to make sure following those policies, you can contact social media platforms to get things taken down, and you can post disclaimers on your real page to your website and then from your website back to social media to designate what is officials. We've also had, the haters. How many of you have had haters or detractors on Facebook, on Nextdoor, on other networks? Okay, definitely a few hands coming up here. So this happens too, where like I mean, this person had it out for Orangevale Rec and Park. And I mean, there would even be things about school districts that had nothing to do with it, and he would say, as the tagline, Orangevale Rec and Park District is fundamentally corrupt, dishonest, self-serving, and authoritarian. And we've all had these members of the public, and this can come up, which is all seems funny until you realize, he has way more time than you do. You have a district to run. So if you do run into haters on social media, you respond respectfully, then you stop. You can always invite them to come in and speak. You might think to block the user would be the right decision, but we're going to get into the pros and cons of that later. It's not blocking is not something that's always legal to do, but there are other things you can try. You can try to report if it's abusive behavior, of course, but know this, not everyone will love you, and that is okay. So just that reminder. Brenda says, what about just ignoring them? Yes, you can do that too. But I think one respectful response, redirecting them to the time, place, and manner to engage with the district, such as coming to a board meeting and sharing in public forum or wherever else, to redirect that. However you'd like to do it can work. But the key is that consistent response and to be, consistent with your policy. And we'll speak to that in a bit. Now, the other thing is who monitors content. So you want to keep in mind, like, this is on demand. And you want to have clear boundaries, like what's expected of district employees. Are people 24/7 monitoring this? You might want to peek at your phone or see what's happening on a hot issue. But when you've got team members, you want to set the right expectations. You want to make sure that everyone is really on the same page, and you can respond during business hours. It doesn't have to be 24/7. Now, there's still the occasional crisis or whatever, but it's always important to just set those expectations. Okay, now let's take a step back. For those of you who are new in social media or just sort of wondering in general, like, this is kind of fun. What is the most popular social media platform? Districts often ask us, like, what should we be on? Where should we go? Okay, any votes here for which is the most popular? We're gonna send this out. Let's type it into chat. We'll just get by responses there. Okay, so I'm counting these: Insta, Facebook, Instagram. Tiffany, of course, points out, well, it depends on the age you're specifically targeting. That's right. The answer is always, in general, the most popular, avoid Nextdoor. Yes, we will talk about Nextdoor and the issues that arise. How many of you have had Nextdoor problems by a show of hands? Yeah, I bet there's going to be hella hands. Yeah. Okay. So Nextdoor is a really interesting thing we'll get to. But surprisingly, and a few of you got this. Yeah, it is Mavis. It is a complaint forum. Here's the thing that's really interesting. The #1 social media network you might not think of it as a social media network. Some of you guessed it, but the majority of you thought Facebook. Facebook is the second most popular platform. The most popular platform is actually YouTube. And this is based on Pew Research done at the end of 2023. So this is pretty much the most recent stuff. It's YouTube. And YouTube is practically a public utility at this point. Like, we've all used it to install that windshield wiper blade or whatever. It's an awesome platform, but it has likes, comments, subscribers, followers, same ideas. It is a social network. I think it's actually pretty well maintained, despite all the problems that plague social media in general. YouTube's done a good job of making it work, making it simple, easy to use, making it accessible. You don't have to have an account to enjoy it. It's pretty neat. It's pretty open. Followed by Facebook, still large and popular. About 2/3 of US adults use that, and about half use Instagram, and the rest go down from there. Now, Nextdoor is not included on these Pew results in this context, but I believe, Annalise, isn't that roughly 1/3 of America is on Nextdoor or so?
Yeah, I believe that's the most recent metric. It's pretty high.
And so, yes, and we'll get into that full, because that is particularly applicable for special districts where you can, look around in there, or you can post to it, but it kind of goes into a black hole. And then there's some ways that you can look at it. but we're going to teach you a few tricks on Nextdoor because it can be everyone's complaint forum. And it's good to have some awareness of what's going on, but not to be overwhelmed by it. Now, what's interesting, a lot of people say TikTok, and what's interesting about TikTok is like if we look at kind of the trends, like Facebook is slowing down, but like still fairly strong. YouTube stronger than ever. All really wide range, wide base. Instagram continuing on the rise, and this is looking from 2021 to 2023. And then you see, you know, the bulk that comprised that roughly third amount. And Be Real. Does anybody use Be Real? I use it a little bit. Be Real is kind of a refreshing thing that I know my nieces and nephews use, where it notifies you to just take a picture of yourself at a random time that your phone will buzz. And you'll be like, and you just, you know, it could be right now during this webinar. I could be real and be like, well, I'm doing a webinar. And the point there is that it shows people living their ordinary not lives, not just posting the highlights, which can make some people feel depressed that like they're not doing all these fun things. But in fact, most people are sitting around, you know, having their microwave dinner, doing nothing. And it's kind of reassuring to see like people are living their lives like I am. So anyway, Be Real is kind of cool, and I'd love to see it. Doesn't allow any editing, filtering, magic. One thing that I wanted to point out is it's like kind of looking at those age ranges and where they show up. It's pretty interesting to see like where it's popular and where it is not as popular. So like YouTube continues to be super popular among the young, and anyway, and then it's sort of less so as people get older, but it still has fantastic adoption. Facebook tends to be a little bit popular with older segments, but still quite popular with younger segments as well. So it's sort of interesting to see this distribution. We'll send this all out, but it's fascinating to watch all this grow. And then if we really get into the psychographics and the segmentation and everything, it's pretty fascinating, like men versus women. Like Pinterest is a very like is a thing where women are far more engaged on it than men. Facebook also as well. However, X or Twitter, you know, tends to be more men than women, and same with Reddit. So there are sort of gender specific things to think about. I mean, think of communities of color, and you look at how that works. If you have a largely Hispanic population, you know, the way that you think about the social networks that you might use or engage with differs. You know, WhatsApp, you know, obviously with big roots in Latin America and Asia, originally being adopted there, is popular and so forth. And then you see the hotspots for the youngins. They're on YouTube, of course, but also Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat, and almost equal quantities with Instagram slightly outperforming TikTok. You also see differences by household income. You see like LinkedIn, it's boy, that's the professional. If you're going to hire a general manager, you're going to want to leverage LinkedIn for sure because of that particular segment. And you're also going to look, you know, if depending on what you want to reach, college educated, again, LinkedIn is this place to go. But it's very fun to kind of think about this. People in rural areas rarely use LinkedIn. So like if you are a volunteer fire district in a rural area, not a great way to reach, you know, the general population to share information about an upcoming fundraiser for your firehouse, etc. Anyway, and even you know, political aspirations and information is all included. So this is all linked. The Pew Research Study is fascinating, and we can get into all of this. But instead of getting lost in what Annalise and I love to do, which is look at all the data, we do want to keep it practical for you. When you are thinking about where your community members engage, never hurts to throw out a survey. You can survey them a few ways. You can survey them in bills that go out if you're, you know, a enterprise district or a district like that is a utility. You can put on your website a simple survey. Of course, that biased a little bit toward the people that are already engaging with you. But all of this is pretty interesting to think about how people would like to hear from your district to understand the great works that you do. Okay, now let's talk about rumors and reputation. So this is the negative part, but also the positive part when we can help solve this and stay ahead of it. We have heard so many dramatic stories from districts across the country who have dealt with rumors. We had in Colorado rumors of water districts that were, you know, spreading. There was rumors being spread that they're installing these smart meters that were spying on the community. And you know what? Those rumors, they're just so juicy that sometimes they keep spreading. So how it works analytically is that there is misinformation, which is generally like innocent, silly stuff like the smart water meters is probably misinformation. And then you also have like disinformation, where you have somebody who's pissed or is coming after you, and they're like intentionally being a campaign operator and trying to discredit the district. Then, of course, what happens is people respond and share items. And then what happens is the algorithms get kind of biased in the process. So there's usually some ingredients to this. Like this is about the formation of a library, and it's like mayor hates trees. This is somebody dramatizing this, of course, and it doesn't take everybody to spread it, but it just takes enough people to then spread it to enough people that spread it to enough people to where it gets going. And of course, there's the anatomy of things that you want to look at when it comes to misinformation. Where's the source? Is it actually the source? Who is the author? What is their context here? What is the information? What are the supporting sources? There's a lot of great information that'll be in these slides that Annalise will send out to you afterward. But we've all been aware of this. And I think what's really interesting is like sometimes people even are clear that it's satire and it still spreads. So like, for example, there's a TikTok video. Now, anyone want to guess? Disney World's actually a special district. It came to light when they were, Reedy Creek is the improvement district that houses Disney World. And this came up, because of the public spats between Disney and Florida's governor. But anyway, it made it kind of interesting territory for rumors to spread, because anything about Disneyland is interesting, or Disney World, because we can all relate and we know about it. And what was really interesting is like there was this news that claimed that Disney World was going to lower the drinking age to 18, and it even got picked up on ABC 10 News. But you know what? And of course, like perfect shock factor, oh my gosh. But this was on a website called Mousetrap News, which literally says, and if we go through the claim, if we like check for the previous work, it was on Snopes and everything. You can follow the protocol for how to do this. But like literally, if you go on the Mousetrap News, it's like we're the world's best satire site. We rate fake stories about Disney park stuff. Like that's their claim. So when they're like lowering the drinking age to 18, it's literally clickbait, but it still causes a headache for poor Disney in this situation. You even have satire stories like this, which was one of my favorite. I'll let you read it. It's literally just like one paragraph article that then goes on, lorem ipsum, blah, 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 blah. Obviously, this is satire, but it happens all the time. It's got that juicy component that makes it share and makes it fun. I personally experienced this at our former company before Streamline spun out to be solely focused on special districts. We were a web agency called Digital Deployment, and I wrote a blog article that was about how Facebook, with every chat that was sent, it would send the full geolocation of where that user was when they sent that message, which I guess Facebook has in stores. This is a little bit before privacy laws took full effect. And you could open it with a little hack on Facebook. And so I found this. It was picked up by some news outlets. I blogged about it. Facebook fixed it in minutes. Like it did not go on for very long. But the article was still up there. And so I wrote a big headline that said, Facebook changed the way this feature works, so it no longer reveals the location. It was still the most visited page on our site by a long way. So like it outperformed even our homepage because so many people were coming and they were messaging me. They were calling our office like, can my ex-girlfriend see where I am? It's like, okay, settle down, everybody. Settle down, everybody. But, it really, like this fake news, this rumor spreading, it leads to popularity. So the takeaway is that you should publish fake news to drive traffic to your website and social media. Just kidding. No, you definitely should not do that. But you should be aware that others might be doing that because it can be popular in advertising and it happens to everyone. Now, let's talk about how we combat it. And let's talk about agreement and disagreement. What happens behind all of this and the science is that when there's something on their feed that they like, when people see this, they get really excited, and things that resonate emotionally and help people share from a place of wanting to genuinely feel helpful is the best kind of content. So if you take pictures in front of your firehouse, if you're a water district and you talk about clean, safe drinking water, if you've got dogs and kids in pictures, make sure to have a waiver with the kids, but like great way to promote your district and get people excited. So when people agree, it's awesome. But the other thing that causes engagement is disagreement. Do you remember this dress? And by the way, Annalise, is this blue and black or is this white and gold? And I would welcome anybody in chat to clarify for me, what color is this dress that I'm looking at right now?
It's definitely blue and black.
Blue and black? Okay,
Mhm.
so I see white and gold. And so does Melissa. So there it is. White and gold for sure, says Annette. That Alexi is like, no, it's blue and black. Yeah. Isn't that interesting? So now white and gold. So I'll be damned if this or if this dress is not actually um Nora. Nora made a really funny face, be an emoji. So I guess in real life, this dress was blue and black. It's kind of the dress on the right, but it got overexposed by the camera, making the colors and the pixels on the screen like more look, at least to me, like the one on the left. And so some people's brains like realize, oh, it's just an overexposed image, but that's definitely like a black and a blue. And the other half of the population, the way that this splits is like 51, 90, 49. You can show these images to people, and uh depending on where they are and how they see it, like they'll just it'll split the population. So this is called the dress that broke the internet, because literally people could not agree on what color it was. And to Facebook and to other social networks, it is really profitable content because they get money through engagement. They don't care whether it's positive or negative engagement. All drives ad dollars. It all drives attention. So unfortunately, like until they can find a better way to have us engage only in positive unifying ways, like and they don't get our adrenaline pumping over a color of a dress, I mean, that is going to be a problem that you as districts will face. Because let's think about it. Special districts, when you're doing your job well, you get taken for granted. It sucks. It's not a fortunate fact, but like when you're doing a great job, it's not newsworthy in the sense that it's life working the way that it's supposed to. It's communities running the way they ought to, things being reliable. It's not headline news, but it's definitely something worthy of praise and appreciation. So while that's still the case, we've got a couple ideas up our sleeves to help combat these pesky rumors, because we want your good story about what you do for your community to be what people see, not the rumor that might pop up. There are a couple things that you can do. One, on a high level, is to make sure that you are combating with keywords anything that might be out there in the world. So one of the ways that we do that is is a framework called search engine optimization. And what that is making sure, like this is that poor Harbor district when it was out there. If you Googled their name, literally the first thing that came up was an article about how they're being criticized as dysfunctional. But we're working with them, getting their website where it needed to be. Afterward, it was them and got all the other better, more factual information up there. They made some great improvements as a district, and all of that stuff went into the past. Another way that you can do this is you can actually use some keywords in the rumor and build a landing page that will allow those keywords to be right next to the facts. So obviously, the problem with the rumors, you don't want to repeat it, right? You don't want to get it out there even more. But if you are facing a particularly pesky rumor, so like this happened with a public school, that they hide records, restrict access, and deny the public guaranteed rights. Well, that's the rumor, but the fact is that it prides itself. They even got an A and a Sunny Award for transparency. It has all this great stuff. And so it's really cool is like, because you as a special district, you actually qualify for a .gov. You have the ability to really get to the top of search results by using some of these strategies. You can make sure that people find your content first, that you're not buried on page 2 or 3 when it comes to that. There's a few ways. So obviously, when you are thinking about how to get your website higher, All of this applies, like when your website ranks higher, your social media will rank higher too, because you're connected as objects in social media. So if you can get a .gov, which you definitely can, and we have a little guide to get you that .gov that makes it really easy. It's free. That will make a huge impact. It even makes it easier to get your blue check marks on social media and others because you're tied to an official website. Also, making sure this all builds your page rank, which will help. The things that help with that rank are things like loading speed, being mobile friendly, making sure your security certificates are up to date, making sure you're ADA compliant, and that you're following other standards. We can send this out. This is a free download on the website that you'll be linked to later that can just help tidy things up if you want your website to do better and therefore your social media as well. You always want to make sure to use like content that's relevant and even use those keywords. Have any of you used Google's Ad Manager by chance? Many people don't think to use it because they're not running ads. But here's a secret. You can use it for free. You don't have to run ads. And if there's a hot issue in your community that like people are talking about, like vector control, which I guarantee you is not like that hot of a topic, but people like we have vector control districts, they help with mosquito abatement. What's really cool is you can type in words about hot issues that are coming up, and then Google Ad Manager will help you understand the language that the public is using to describe those issues. So vector control is district speak. Mosquito abatement apparently is a much more common term, or control of mosquito is how the world talks about it. And what's pretty cool is like if you want to make sure that you're speaking in the public language, you can type in some keywords into Google's Ad Manager, and it's pretty helpful in being able to give you like a keyword explorer, keyword brainstorm of other ways you can describe it that matches how the public talks about it. Other steps are, building credibility, making sure that when you're posting things, particularly if you have a partner, if you're covered in the newspaper, make sure they point to your website, make sure they link to your social media. That will help your credibility. Whenever possible, just, you can request those, and making sure that all of these things like social media feeds, like make sure that you're really able to reach people that way, and make sure that the algorithms work in your favor, so your content is getting out there first. And we've seen things go wrong. We've seen things go wrong on social media. So if you're creating content out there and you're making sure that you're trying to tell your story as best as you can, but things go south. This happened in NYPD. They were like, hey, do you have a photo of the member with the NYPD? Like, tweet us and tag us on these tags. And then they're like, sure. And then all of a sudden, issues of police violence and all that stuff, the feed got kind of overtaken by the public. So in those cases, like you can put yourself out there and it can fail even with the best of intentions. If there's a mess up, you definitely want to apologize. You don't want to be tentative about it. And don't delete. So don't delete the offending post thinking that it would go away. Make sure that you archive it or clear it in accordance with your policies. And if you do, like, let's say somebody posted something that was private information and it needed to be taken down, and you want to document it being taken down because it's still part of your public records. You don't want to hide, like you want to be very careful about like hiding comments. There was this GovTech article we found, the unseen consequences of hiding social comments. This is still an area of evolution, but you want to be really clear that if you hide somebody or push you kind of mute a member of the public, that member of the public needs to know that they've been muted. You can do it in accordance with your policy, but you need to make sure that they're clear on that. So there were some cases where social media comments were being hidden and the person had no idea, and then that caused a lot of problems. Blocking. Public officials generally can't block followers. Now, if there's a case where somebody's like literally putting hate speech into your page or on linking with your tags, you can report those posts and the social media network can take them down. No problem. But you just want to be very, very careful blocking users. Now, if you have a problem where somebody is really really a pain. Or somebody 5 years ago had your Facebook page credentials and you can't get them back. Facebook Government Affairs is really, really helpful. If you have a .gov domain that you're sending email from, even easier. They're incredibly responsive, but we have contact people at Facebook Government Affairs that we can put you in touch with. We had some friends in Utah that a district out there that ran into this problem, and we were able to get help from their government affairs team, and they're pretty awesome. We have a question here. What about scam profiles that come on and be added as friends? You know what? I even dealt with this like a couple of months ago, where there was another Matt Clemens that appeared on social media with my picture and started adding my friends as friends, and then having strange conversations with them or attempting to. In that case, you can report those profiles as scam or spam. But reporting to Facebook is the safest thing to do, because then Facebook is taking the action. You're not taking the action. They are making an independent judgment, and it's an arm's length relationship with a district. It's hard for somebody to accuse you of silencing them when all you did was bring it to Facebook's attention. So what you do is, in these situations, you want to refer to your policies. And without a policy for your district, you can have little recourse. And social media, just remember, it's not exempt from any kind of records requests, but you want to make sure you're always following those retention policies, keeping things up there, and covering your donkey in the process. You want good policies that really protect your districts, because they can really save you. There's 3 kinds of policies you need. There's a general social media policy, which is going to describe the purpose and the district social media use, etc. You're going to have sort of the posting part. Now, these can be like 3 components of one singular policy. We have an example we can share with you. And there's internal. So like, what are the expectations from staff, etc. So the general one is like available to the public. The posting, interacting is like who at the district gets to post and interact. So like, for example, like, does anybody, any staff member get to act on social media, or does just the general manager? If the general manager is on vacation, who has access to it? How is access control working? Is there some district Gmail account that everyone's using to get in, which I do not recommend, but I know that's a reality for a lot of people. Is it something where people can be added and removed using access control on the different networks? That's, in my opinion, a better way. But you can have one backup account that you do have that, Gmail that your IT department keeps, or something keeps in a safe, just in case you need to get in and retake control if all of the people that are in there are unreachable. All of that can be described in the policies and the examples we include for you. Also, outlining just the internal staff expectations. When are you expected to be online? When are you not expected to be online? These kinds of policies can create a lot of guidance around that, and how people use tools, computers. So let's look at how policies could help us. If there's a rogue social media page without permission, the policy can say that's permitted, and you can take it down immediately. If there's the posting of offensive personal opinions while clearly on an employee, or while you're clearly an employee or clearly on district time, like that can be managed through a policy, right? I mean, like we have a policy at Streamline, to make sure that people are not embarrassing, when they're out there. Maria Lara, who often joins these talks, I think many of you know Maria. She's awesome. She worked at a Rec and Park district in high school, and they had a policy where you couldn't wear the Rec and Park t-shirts as an employee out and about socially, because they just wanted to make sure they really control how the brand worked. And that they didn't want an employee doing something silly, as sometimes the high school students do, outside of work that would negatively impact the brand. So through policy, they can do that. Even if you have offensive comments, you can delete them if they're defined. So I met one district that just said, as a policy, we do not allow commenting on any election that is not related to the district. You know what? Under that policy, they could get rid of a lot of chatter that was very not focused and unhelpful from their pages, just pursuant to the policy. The key is that it's treating everybody equally, so that there is not any confusion and there isn't an accusation of subjective behavior that comes up. Where most of these government social media policies unfortunately fall short is there's these really long legal things that people don't understand. And as a result of that, like they end up implementing a social media cover policy that like technically is legal, but if people don't actually understand it and it doesn't get used, then it's not that useful. So this has come up a number of times we've seen, and the policies that are clear just do so much better. All right, we covered a lot. I want to slow down and just kind of recap some of the things that we talked about and some of the things you can do today. What you can do today is you can check and make sure that even if you don't want to have social media today, you can check and make sure that there are not any current pages or profiles that might be using your district name. You can make sure to claim or create pages or profiles for your organization, even if you don't want to post on it. So like if you want to tiptoe into social media, you can create a Facebook page today. You could upload your logo and you could just say, for information about the district, please see our website. But then you're there. And if you need to use it later, you can. You're there so that nobody else can cyber squat it and try to, get there first. You'll at least have it up and a stub. And then if you want to do something with it later, you've built more time, more reputation, and you've reinforced your existing methods of communication so people get to the right and to the official place. Another thing is making sure you link to that website and in the bio, but then you also link vice versa. Like in Instagram, you have the ability to add a link, one link. And if you pay for a fancy profile, you can add multiple links, or you can add those little link pages. But my favorite is just to link back to the district website again. Of course, get that .gov. That will help you in so many ways. It's a little bit of a process, but it's awesome. And just grabbing that, reserving it, switching to it long term. Your old one can still work. So your .org or whatever you might have currently can still work and just redirect to the new one. So no links will break. And if you do it right, all of that social media rank, all of that search rank will transfer to that .gov, and you'll rank higher for a wider range of keywords for topics that are important to your community. And lastly, if you have time and you're feeling a little bit more advanced, you can explore some of those SEO strategies we talked about, whether it's a rumor versus fact page, whether it's just researching in the Keyword Explorer how to better communicate with your community and get those messages out there. That would be awesome. The reason why we care so much about this, and I guess I don't really have a slide that like particularly calls this out, although I think we have it in others, like there are so many cool ways that districts have used social media. We've seen them make silly videos about the Zika virus. And this is in the San Gabriel Valley, mosquito vector control district. We've seen the TSA post, on Twitter, serious messages, but also funny messages. When somebody tries to get through TSA with a replica rocket launcher, it's like pretty amazing what they do. And we've even seen, sanitary districts that are like, what on earth would we have to say on social media? Well, like they made this whole campaign around Halloween where they said, old toilets waste a spooky amount of water, and nobody even had to put their face on. They just ran around in a sheet. And for, the time spent in the afternoon, they had a really clever campaign to bring awareness to their community for what they do. And when you take the time to communicate a little bit, send out a newsletter maybe, or even just take a simple picture out in front of your firehouse, for example, celebrating those local heroes and doing so much more, it's a really inspiring way for you to remind the community of the important work that you do. And I think that there are so many awesome stories that need to be told about special districts and the great works that you do. Like we say that all the time, but like I live in a special district for my power. I live in the Sacramento Municipal Utility District. I pay 20% less than my friends that live up in the foothills that have an investor-owned utility. Like when communities come together to create government, it's awesome. And so like we want you to do that. We want you to take these actions today to get better positioned in your community. And we want to make sure that you have the resources to explore further. So here's some links for you to check out. We've got all kinds of example policies. We've got other materials and articles. We'll be sending out a recording of this talk, and we'll also be sending out the slides for you to review. And I want to thank you and open it up for any questions while we wrap up, because we got just a little bit of extra time. But I want to thank you for the work you do as a public servant for your community. And I hope that you can tell your story and socialize without any fear of rumors and reputation taking you off track. All right, with that, we'll open up, and I thank you very much. All right, Annalise will be looking at the questions for any that come in, and then we will go on video directly and answer them as they come up. You're welcome. Yes, Terry, Diraj, Carly, Carrie. All right, well, we will also just give you the gift of time. I know we covered a lot. It was kind of like drinking out of a fire hose. I don't even know where you would begin with all of these. We know we wanted to cover a lot, but yeah, no, we thank you. And absolutely. We do have one question coming in. I receive a lot of friends requests on my elected official profile that are clearly fake. Can you block those? I would report those, Elizabeth. Depends on the network that you're using. But here, just shoot me an email. We'll put my email in the chat. And, keep this conversation going. We love, Annalise will put both of our emails in chat. We love to hear from districts. Every session or so, and today we have almost 100 people. And if you want to email us later, only 1 or 2 people do. They'll ask a couple questions, but it's great. We love to hear from you. Gets us researching, gets us learning more. We'd love to provide any recommendation. We serve only special districts, so this is our whole job, is to make sure you're empowered to communicate online. Awesome. All right. Well, with that, we'll wrap it up and look for a follow-up email from us in the next couple days. And we thank you again. We wish you a great rest of your Wednesday. Take care.